Now, you may have noticed them whizzing past you on the roads or pavements recently. Depends where you live. We're talking about e-scooters because trials are underway in more than 40 towns and cities across England to see if their use could offer a solution to congestion and pollution.
There are hopes the devices could be rolled out across the country as a greener alternative to driving, but road safety campaigners say more regulations are needed. Sophia Seth has more.
They were brought in as a greener, more sustainable mode of transport to reduce traffic congestion in our towns and cities. And across the country, trial hire schemes for e-scooters have been operating. This one in Southampton began last month.
It's actually a lot more stable than I thought it would be when I first looked at them, so that was quite nice. And actually turning was quite straightforward.
This is the first time. We just went on them to see what they were like. They seem pretty fun. Good way of getting around as well.
Going on the roads when buses pass you is kind of sketchy, but I think it's all right. There's a lot of cycle lanes around as well, so it's okay.
These ones in Southampton can be hired via a subscription service or on a pay-as-you-go basis using an app on your phone. The speed has been capped at 10 miles per hour, although the maximum speed allowed is 15.5 miles per hour. The use of them around the city here has had mixed reviews.
Young kids, no road sense, you know, and off they go. So I think there's an accident waiting to happen.
You just wonder when you're a pedestrian if they're going to run into you, to be honest.
I mean, the thing is, the regulations at the moment are a bit complicated because, like the councils, it's illegal on the road if you rent it from the council and not if you get it for yourself, which I think is a bit absurd, yeah.
I think that they are fine. They're a good eco-friendly way of getting around, but I've got a feeling that a lot of people will use them on the pavements and they'll become a bit of a nuisance. Fine on the roads, but not on the pavements.
To rent an e-scooter, you have to
have at least a provisional driver's licence and you are urged to wear a helmet. Only rental e-scooters like these can be used on roads and cycle lanes. So if you have a private, unregulated scooter, it can only be used on private land.
One of the problems at the moment is some companies on the internet are selling really poor quality, dodgy scooters, and they're going to cause problems out on the streets. So I think that the sooner they legalise it and put in really strict rules, Germany's really strict, there's a lot of regulations, and we should do the same.
Cycling retailer Halfords also sells e-scooters. It has seen sales boost over the last year. The company has started a petition to call for the government to legalise the use of all e-scooters on public roads. Meanwhile, in Newcastle, another city trialling rental e-scooters, the council there has introduced more restrictions on them after dozens of people were caught dangerously riding them last month. There was also complaints of them being dumped in places. And concerns have been raised in Liverpool, where a councillor recently branded the devices orange death traps after witnessing people riding them on pavements in the city. The government is trialling rental e-scooters in more than 40 towns and cities across England as it assesses their safety and whether they reduce traffic. Birmingham, Salford and Bristol are also among those taking part in the scheme. They'll start being rolled out in London later this spring. A decision will then be made about whether the vehicles can be fully legalised. Sophia Seth, BBC News.
We're joined now by motoring journalist and electric vehicle campaigner Quentin Wilson and also David Aldwinckle from the Royal National Institute of Blind People, who himself is registered as blind. Good morning to you both, Quentin and David.
Morning.
Morning. David, you know, spoken a lot about kind of the concerns about electric vehicles, but particularly electric scooters. And it's not just not being able to perhaps hear them coming, but where they've been parked. I know that, or been left, that's been a big issue.
Yeah, I think what we're hearing from blind and partially sighted people across the areas where these are being trialled and indeed where they're not being trialled is that there's a sort of sense of fear from a number of people in terms of the speed of something coming towards you and the fact that it is silent. I don't think we can overlook that silence, but also, as you say, they are being left in places that they become hazards for somebody trying to navigate the pavement and sort of go about their daily lives. And I think if you just put that put this in the context of you're coming out of lockdown, there's a great deal of anxiety amongst blind and partially sighted people about coming out of lockdown and learning to navigate the new ways of the world. And e-scooters being either parked inconsiderately or just simply dumped, adds another layer of that anxiety.
Yeah, and David, a lot of people will completely understand that on a practical note. I mean, what do you think could be done by the authorities, by, I don't know, the manufacturers of the scooters, by the local authorities, to do something practical that would help that situation? Because they do exist, there will be more of them around, so how do you make it more bearable?
Well, I think we need to be clear that we don't have objections to e-scooters in general. We accept and support the environmental reasons, the ways, definitely ways of getting our sort of cities moving again. So we support all of that. We just want to see the rollout, the progress of it done, taking into account the needs of pedestrians and particularly blind and partially sighted people. And I think there's some simple things that we could be looking at, taking a similar approach to electric vehicles where there's some kind of noise that goes with it. The silence is an issue, as I say. Limiting speeds, which was mentioned in your report, but obviously doesn't apply with privately owned vehicles. Within the sort of the environmental infrastructure is making it really clear, making essential that they are used on the public highway or on cycle lanes rather than on the pavement, and keeping them off the pavement and keeping pedestrians apart from them is just simply a really good idea.
Well, let's pick up on that with Quentin. I mean, OK, so Quentin, taking them off the pavements on the roads, how do they work in tandem with all the other traffic that is soon going to be building even more as we come out of lockdown on the roads?
Well, we have all these cycle lanes, so we can use those, and we can use smart technology to make sure the scooters can't be used on pavements and are a menace to pedestrians. So you have these corridors of designated use where they can be used, and if they stray from those corridors, then they're just automatically switched off. The docking issue is very important. You can't have them abandoned on every street corner and then have them collected by a diesel van the following day, because environmentally that's just bad news, and it's so silly. So we need some really, really good rules of engagement with this. But the most important headline fact is that studies in America, North Carolina and UCLA University showed that 35% of those journeys on scooters would have been done normally by cars. Now, if we can displace 35% of car traffic in cities, then this is a huge transformational goal that we should be working towards. And don't forget, people were saying that motor cars at the turn of the century were frightening the horses, and we were saying the same thing about electric cars, and they'd be running people over because they were silent. So this is disruptive technology. So of course we're going to be fearful.
Quentin, can I just ask you, I mean, we know that these are trials and those have rules and regulations around them. I mean, the reality is you can buy one and you can get on it. And that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
It is, and the rules aren't clear at all. As you said in the intro, that you can lease one and ride it, you can buy one, it's illegal, you can only use it on private land. And the police, frankly, have better things to do than enforce this. But again, it's down to smart technology. We have to make sure that if you buy one and the legalities are in place, then you can only use it in certain places. So this all needs to be sorted out. And to their credit, the government has said, look, this is something we really do need to aim for, because it is significant in the smart infrastructure of smart mobility in the future. And these scooters are not going to go away, just like e-bikes aren't going to go away. They are very, very zero emission and really, really good for the environment and stop pollution and congestion. So we just need to develop a form of engagement, a form of use, a form of understanding, and stop the bad behaviour and stop them being abandoned on corners.
Quentin, thank you very much for that. It's Quentin Wilson, who's, of course, written about motoring issues for a very long time. And David, thank you very much for your input today. David Aldwinckle is from the Royal National Institute for the Blind.